Hello and welcome to Groundworks Live segment. I'm Tim Tracy, the National Sales Trainer here at Groundworks. We're the nation's leading foundation repair company. We have over 17 locally operated brands and 40 locations, comprising 3,000 employees. Our brands offer foundation, crawlspace, basement, and concrete solutions throughout the U.S. Today, we welcome back Groundworks Live guest speaker and plumbing expert, Jerry Bradbury. Jerry, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Jerry Bradbury, Operations Manager at A1 Sewer and Drain. A1 Sewer and Drain has been in business since 1987, and we've been part of Groundworks for about 3 years. I joined the A1 team in 2019, and I've been plumbing for 38 years. Started doing plumbing in 1983. Tim?
Well, welcome back, and thank you for joining us again, Jerry, for our Groundworks Live segment. It's everything a homeowner needs to know about root damages, what they can do to a home, and plumbing systems. So today we're going to go over how tree roots impact a home, the signs and symptoms of damage, solutions, or how we can help, and then we're going to go over some of those prevention tips that everybody's always looking for. I want to remind all the viewers out there to go ahead and drop some comments into the chat, also some questions. Jerry and I can get to those later on in the segment at the end and make sure we answer whatever's going on in your guys' head. So to start us off, Jerry and I are going to dive in deep with how tree roots can impact a home. Now, some varieties of trees and shrubs have very invasive root systems. Some are more invasive than others. Tree roots also are very opportunistic, they say, so they're going to go where it's easiest to grow. And according to a Forestry and National Resources article published by Purdue University, when roots encounter solid impervious surfaces like pipes, sidewalks, curbs, and foundations, they're redirected laterally and they'll try to go up and over. However, if there's a breach or a crack nearby, they can and will exploit those voids in search of moisture. So invasive tree roots, they can damage a lot of systems in and around the home. You've got plumbing, foundations, driveways, sidewalks, patios, sprinkler systems, pools, retaining walls, chimneys, tons of stuff, right? It's a very powerful, very invasive thing to have around the home. So good thing to talk about today. So today we're going to dive deeper into the details around plumbing damage and foundation damage. Jerry, can you tell us more specifically what can happen with a home's plumbing system and when those tree roots invade the plumbing system?
Absolutely. So tree roots can cause a lot of damage to your home's plumbing system. It can also snap your water lines and do a lot of damage to your sewer lines and your septic tank. Now, especially if you have lines that are made of terracotta, cast iron, and Orangeburg. As these pipes over time have become very brittle and they can crack easily, but especially when tree roots begin to start pushing against them. So you got foreign objects that can get in them when they're pushed against and they cause cracks and whatnot. You also have your pipes that as the roots push against them, it cause misalignments. They can also push against them and cause bellies, which that belly will hold your sewage in there, your solids, and cause backups. And then, of course, you got the total collapse to where the root's been pushing against it and it just totally collapses. And causes a lot of problems, a lot of issues, we're really bad situation going on there. Tim, how do tree roots affect the foundation when the roots are pushing against them?
Sure. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Foundations, whether it be a crawl space or a basement, tree roots can grow in and around. They can try to penetrate the foundation. However, it's more likely to happen if they're invited in through a crack or some type of weakness or gap in the wall. Now, with concrete surfaces, you also, like your sidewalks, patios, driveways, garage slabs, tree roots can grow above, below, and even through these surfaces as well. So that's true as well of a slab foundation. So tree roots can push up with those hard surfaces as well, causing what we call root heave. So your sidewalks will have some peaks and valleys is what that'll cause. So not to worry, just because you have a tree planted in your yard, it doesn't mean you're going to wreak havoc on your home necessarily. However, you should be aware of common signs and symptoms Jerry, what signs should homeowners look for or look out for that indicate root damage to that plumbing system?
Yeah, so your interior signs and symptoms inside your home, you may notice that your sinks and your tubs and your drains may start draining a little slower, and they may start making that gurgling sound. You may notice a foul odor coming or sewer smell coming from around your plumbing fixtures themselves. You may also notice that your toilets start backing up a little more frequently, and they may even start flushing slower. Your exterior signs and symptoms outside, you may see a few signs that suggest damage or compromised sewer line. If you look in your yard, you may see sinkholes, patches of vibrant grass, or bushes and trees that have rapid growth. There's a high possibility that you have a damaged sewer line. It's getting all the nutrients from that and it's making it do that. However, there's only one really certain way to know if there's damage. And we'll need to use a snake and a camera to go through your sewer line and see if there's any root growth in there or within there. We had one customer that we went out on a call and they had root intrusion in there and we knew it. So we gave them a price to do a whole sewer line. And they decided that they were going to wait a minute to do it. They just wanted to wait a little bit of time. And so 3 months later, they called us back. We went back out there, cleared it again. And once again brought up the estimate, to replace that sewer line. And the customer decided, hey, I'm going to wait just a little bit longer. Well, about 3 months later, they call us back out. We get out there. We can't clear this line now. It actually got to the point to where the roots caused the line to collapse.
So there's only so many times that you can do it over and over.
Over again, and then you don't have a problem. Mm-hmm. And so they had to wait, for a little bit of time, a few days to get on our schedule to have the sewer redone, and the whole sewer had to be replaced. Wow. And that was a big thing. Tim, now what about the foundation side of this? What are some of the signs and symptoms of foundation damage caused by tree roots?
Sure. Yeah. Once again, it doesn't matter whether you have a basement or a crawl space. You can have these kind of problems with your foundation. Some of the common signs that you'll see are slanting floors or uneven foundation that can appear in cracks in the side. You can have a stair-step cracking pattern and a block wall. Foundation will appear also on the same side of the house as a tree. We often see that. Standing water in your home after a storm can indicate there's some penetrations. Possibly the roots are making these worse or widening these. Even moisture, just excessive moisture in your crawl space or basement. And when I said excessive moisture, I mean pretty much any moisture is excessive in both of those locations, right? So your foundation settling, uneven basement floor, garage slabs, sticking door frames is something that comes up a lot. It reminds me of a customer in Maryland, and I brought in some pictures on the slides there where you can see they thought when they called us out they had sticking doors in that door frame you see, and then right next adjacent there was a sliding glass door, and they were sure that it was the bamboo roots that they had to eradicate when they first bought the house a year ago. And as you can see in the pictures, it wasn't the bamboo shoots there. It was that monster tree that was sitting next to the house was actually pushing. And you crawl in that crawl space, you can see that block rotating in that foundation. So it just keeps pushing and keeps pushing. And if you think about a block wall, it's designed to be strong up and down. It's not designed for that lateral pressure, especially in a crawl space where you've got 5-6 courses of block there. Right. So it's absolutely important. Most important tip that we can share today, if you notice any of these signs, whether it be in your plumbing system or your foundation system, that we make sure that we address these as soon as possible. Like Jerry said, that these things can get worse and worse and worse, and just because you can get them temporarily fixed or band-aided with a plumbing system, we want to make sure that you get it fixed right, because it's just going to get more expensive to fix it, really, once the whole system collapses. So before we dive into tree roots or with the plumbing or the foundation systems, let's take a moment and just remind the viewers to go ahead and submit any questions you may have, any comments. Jerry or I will get to those at the end of the segment, and then that way we can get the things that you guys are thinking about out there. So let's move on to how we can help. So after consulting an expert to address the physical tree roots, it's important to address the root cause of the problem, right? Pun
Yep.
intended, Jerry.
Yep.
What should homeowners do to resolve plumbing damage?
Well, Tim, we always recommend that the best thing to do is replace your total sewer line from the house to the street. That's the best thing to do, especially if you have the cast iron, terracotta, or Orangeburg pipe. These are all the older pipes. They are brittle.
Yeah, you mentioned the Orangeburg earlier. Can you explain to the viewers what that is? What
Yeah,
they'd be
so
looking for?
Orangeburg is a pipe that was produced in the early 1900s. It was used up till the 70s, and it's actually a pipe that it's kind of like the tar paper that goes on a roof, and it's wrapped over and over again about 10 times around with tar to hold it together. And it's a paper product, almost. It's almost like a paper, and it was only used for outside sewer lines. It's not used for internal. It's all outside the building envelope.
Yeah, wrapped paper with tar seems pretty primitive way to handle my sewage, I think.
And it lasts it has lasted for a long time. Been in use for a long time, but it comes in 4 to 6 foot sections. Same like the terracotta, and that means that you have a joint every 4 to 6 feet. So by that, when these roots are trying to find their way in, they can push against it, gets in there easily. And once that root gets in there, it's the same. Once it gets in there, it wreaks havoc. Because once that living tree seeks out the nutrients and the moisture from being in a sewer line, it's going to constantly do that. And that's why we don't recommend doing a small repair if you have that type of pipe in there, and to do a full repair and get good PVC in there that comes in 20-foot lengths, and you have actual glue joints that bond this pipe together so the roots won't get in. And so, yeah, there is some temporary ways to do a temporary fix, using a jetter to clean out the roots in the pipe. But like I said in the story there that I was telling you about, the one customer, you got to go back every 2 to 3 months, because them roots are going to grow. They got so much nutrients, they actually grow pretty fast and they get pretty thick in there. So once you clear it out a couple times, your line, you may end up with a total collapse. And once you do that, you may end up with a sewer line backing up into your house and causing damage there. And I've seen a lot of homeowners that waited too long to do it, just like I was saying.
Yeah, and that's got to go somewhere. Right? When it backs up, it's not a good spot.
And chances are it's going to come out the lowest place, which is going to be one of your toilets. So on the first floor, and it's going to cause a lot of damage.
Sure.
Tim, now, just because a damaged sewer line may need a total full replacement, I simply can't imagine that a homeowner would have to replace their entire foundation because of this root problem being pushed up against there.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. When you talk about the joints in between the Orangeburg and the cast iron, that these joints are kind of the weak points that the root system's getting in. Block walls are very similar. Block walls compared to a poured foundation is you have more of those mortar joints, and those are easier places for intrusion for root systems to get into and start damaging those block walls at a greater rate than concrete. So that's definitely something that, very similar in those systems. But when it comes to foundation, like you mentioned, most of the time we don't recommend that you have to replace the entire foundation. We have a lot of repair options that we can come in and make corrections to the wall as it's had some movement or damage, intrusion, whether that be foundation damage or wall damage. So our foundation specialists will come out and they'll discuss the wall repair options that you may have. Pictured in the bottom right, you'll see the wall anchors. With wall anchors, what we're doing is we're placing these 2 wall plates, one inside the home and one outside in the yard. And we're actually going to use the weight of the soil to help strengthen that foundation wall and pull it back into place. Another option would be something we call IntelliBraces. There we're using a hot dip galvanized steel I-beam, and we're going to place that on the inside of the wall, and we can also see some correction and be able to move that wall back in if it's being pushed in, as long as there's not too much, you don't wait too long, just like your story.
Shore it up a bit.
Yep, shore it up and stabilize it using the rest of the flooring system.
Okay.
One of the other options for a wall repair would be carbon fiber or carbon armor, is what we call it. We're installing carbon fiber straps. These, once the resin and the carbon fibers dries together, it's actually 10 times stronger than steel. So we can't get any correction out of the wall from that, but we can stabilize it and offer a guarantee that warranty that for the life of the structure. So we can get you some great things there. Now, when it comes to water damage, certainly getting that waterproofing specialist to come out, determine what the best solution for you, your house, your family is going to be. We highly recommend that you're going to install a sump pump. You need to be able to discharge that water, an interior drainage system sitting on top of the footer, so you're not getting all that silt and mud in the drainage system, which is one of those problems with it being installed on the outside in the first place. Okay. So that's going to capture and channel that water around. We like to install a wall seal product on the wall. That's going to channel any future intrusions, anything that's going to come in later. Channel that down into your basement gutter, get to that sump pump, and get it out of the home where the water belongs.
Right. Okay.
So also in that an air system, whether that be a crawlspace air system or a basement air system, is going to help dehumidify, keep your air quality a lot higher level in both of those environments, because a lot of that air, when you have a crawl space, is coming up into the living area. 50 to 60% of that air you're breathing is coming from that crawl space. So keeping that dry, keeping it the air system in there, you're going to filter down to a couple microns, basically the size of a human hair. So getting all the microbes and all the bad stuff, keep that down and out where it's supposed to be. Now, after any of those foundation concerns are addressed, we also recommend sealing any kind of foundation cracks that have formed with those tree roots, getting those sealed up so you're not continuing to seek nutrients and moisture, as you were talking about earlier, Jerry. So because tree roots can damage a home, it's difficult to detect what's going on because this is happening underneath the soil, right? So it's important to know how to prevent damage from occurring. So let's go over 5 prevention tips that we recommend. So number 1, avoid planting anything in your yard.
Don't plant anything in your yard.
I think that's a good one, right? Yeah, just kidding. Number 1, keep up with your proper yard grading. What we want is positive grading. We talked about this a couple months ago. You want to make sure that water and the area slopes away from the home. That'll help shed that excessive moisture when you get a really heavy rain. It's a win-win system because it's going to help with basement water issues. It's also going to have less water next to the house, where the tree's not going to want to grow that direction. At least the root system will be less likely to grow to that direction because you don't have as much water down there.
Okay, yeah. And number 2, beware of the trees and the bushes and the shrubs with the invasive roots, such as the maple or silver maple tree, American elm. You got the southern magnolia. You got the willow trees, the poplar trees, sycamore trees, Japanese knotwood, and these are all popular trees because they're pretty trees and people like them, and they tend to buy these and plant them in their yard. But all these have very, very strong root systems that can damage your sewer line and snap your water lines. So you want to know where your sewer line and water line is, especially before you plant. And any plumber can locate these, locate your sewer line and your water line using a camera and a locator. And always plant your large trees at least 20 feet away from your structure, your home. And keep your flower garden to flowers and, smaller bushes. Don't ever plant your bushes right on top of your sewer line, like what's in reference to the guide on the slide. It shows you different trees, different distances that you want to plant away from your structure to keep them from the roots being, pushing towards that structure, not just the structure, but also your sewer lines.
Yeah. Different trees have different root systems, so they have different sizes, right?
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to tip number 4. you want to install root barriers before planting trees. So what the root barrier will do is you can help to direct the direction of the root system and in which way it's going to grow. So you can make sure that that horizontal growth that happens once the roots start going down isn't going to special structures like your foundation, things that you really care about, your driveways, your sidewalks, your plumbing system, your main drain line,
Right.
those types of things, to be able to shield those and get those roots to go the direction that you want. Number 5, consult with a tree trimming expert to come out and discuss cutting roots. So this prevention tip is especially important if you've recently purchased a home and you're unsure about what types of trees happen in your yard. I'm not an arborist myself, so that list of trees
Right.
that you were going over, I wouldn't be able to identify maybe not even one of those trees on the list. So I would need a professional come out and let me know what size of that root system, what's being affected, what's damaged, if there is any damage, and what should I be looking out for. So definitely a good tip. Well, that's all we have really today. So far, we've gone over how tree roots can impact a home, the signs and symptoms of damage that you can look out for, how prevention or how foundation repair specialists and plumbing experts can help you out to alleviate the worry and concern about these problems, and then some fun prevention tips. So I want to thank Jerry again for joining. I want to thank all the viewers for tuning in, and hope they learned something new. The viewers, let's go to some questions here. And so I've got, here's one for you, Jerry. Earlier you explained what Orangeburg piping was. What's different between Orangeburg and the other 2 pipes that you mentioned, the cast iron and the terracotta?
Okay, so the Orangeburg, like I mentioned, it's a paper type of pipe that was used strictly for outside the building structure, sewer lines. Your cast iron pipe's another one that's been around for a long time. That was used both inside the building and outside the building. You got a lot of sewer lines that are made with those. Those came in 10-foot sections. So if you got a 40-foot sewer line, you got bands together or lead and oakum joints that they were put together with, leaving these joints, every time you got a joint with those type of pipes, you got another way how roots can get into your system, and they start pushing on, because those leaks, they leak after time, especially when they've been in the ground for 40, 50, 60 years. Along with the terracotta. The terracotta is another one. It was a clay pipe. It's like it's clay. It's almost like a cement clay pipe. It came in 4 to 6 foot sections once again, same like the Orangeburg, with joints. They took Tim, they actually took almost like a mortar and put it in there, and it had a bell that went in and everything, and they sealed it up. And over time, those things start to leak. And these pipes become brittle over, they've been in the ground for a long time. I mean, neither one of these pipes really been used for sewer lines and stuff like that since the 80s. Pretty much since the 80s, it's all been PVC. So if you got that pipe in the ground, chances are you're going to have a problem. It's been thinning out. It's become brittle. And especially if you got trees growing around there, Tim, you could have problems.
Yeah, so it sounds like they were trying to come up with a solution to fix the problems, but they kept coming up with these short section solutions that had the same basic problems. And
yeah, and at the time in the year, they served their purpose and they did well. But over the years, it's time to get that out of there and get you some PVC in there.
Okay. Very good. See, you learn something all the time. Next question here. I recently purchased a home with a known foundation crack. There's a large tree near the home, but I'm not sure what's causing the damage. Who should I contact first, a foundation company or a tree service company? Well, with this, I would definitely recommend calling the foundation company first. You want to make sure that tree is actually the problem. It's like that customer I was talking about earlier in Maryland. They thought it was a bamboo tree issue, that they had taken a lot of time and effort to get rid of those bamboo because they're very invasive, tough to get rid of. Oh, yeah. But turns out it was the other 2 beautiful trees that were there, but could be any number of causes, just the weight of the soil, the way that it was compacted. There's a lot of things that can go on. So before you start cutting down trees, make sure that is actually the problem. And so contact that foundation specialist first. Next question is definitely for you, Jerry, because I don't know anything about septic tanks. How can tree roots get into a septic tank?
Okay, well, Your tree root's gonna get into your septic tank same way how it gets into your sewer line. It's gonna find a spot. It's gonna push against it. It's gonna cause it to crack, or it's gonna find that weak joint that had been leaking for many years, and it's gonna seek out that nutrient. And what's a septic tank? It's full of nutrients. So it's gonna grow in that pipe, and it's gonna get into that septic tank through the pipe and through the joints on the outside. But once it gets in there, it has the nutrients to grow, become a very strong root, push on the septic tank, and you could have some big problems. So it's very important, if you have a septic tank and whatnot, you really don't want no trees around that either.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So, septic tanks now, got another one coming in. I recently purchased a home with a known foundation crack. There's a large tree near the home, but I'm not sure what's causing the damage. Oh no, that's sorry. I'm rereading the other question. It was showing up on two different chats. So, do you know if homeowners insurance will typically cover plumbing and foundation damage from tree roots?
Well, Tim, as far as the plumbing side goes, I can't speak on the foundation side, but as far as the plumbing side goes, if the roots, and really it depends on your policy, so you want to check your policy and see what you got covered. Because, hey, different policies have different ways how they're written, they have different things that they're covered, and they offer different levels of coverage. Some insurance companies will cover it outside the home. Other ones won't cover it, but except inside the home. But hey, there's times that these roots too get into the system, and they actually grow into the crawl space or into underneath the foundation. And at that point, it will cover it, because most all your covered on your insurance will cover what's inside the envelope of your home. Some of them won't cover it outside. So I'd highly suggest, if you're wondering that, you want to get in touch with your insurance company and find out exactly what they'll cover.
Yeah, and that's what I recommend on the foundation side as well. I don't see a lot of homeowners policies covering things like you said that are happening outside the home coming in. If it was something in the home system, then that'll be typical. That's one of the reasons I really like my insurance agent, is he won't necessarily put a claim in for everything I ask him. I'm able to call and just ask some questions, and then it doesn't affect any of my rates or anything like that. So it's good to be able to have a good relationship, so you can call and ask rather than making a claim when they're not going to cover anything.
And some of them will cover it outside, and some of them won't. So it's important, like you said, call your agent and talk to them and find out what they will cover.
Talk to the agent.
Yes.
All right. Next one coming in. I'm noticing a small horizontal crack in my foundation. What could be the cause of this? Well, a small horizontal crack, if it's around just slightly below eye line, can be would be the first stage of wall failure. So that's where something's pushing on the outside, whether that be the weight of the water and the soil that's pushing in there. Could be from a frost problem, from water issues during the winter, or it could be what we're talking about today, where it's a tree root system. But being that it's the first stage, if you catch it early, all of our wall repair products will work and be able to correct and stabilize that for the life of the structure. Just get in, do it one time, and then not have to worry about it again. So definitely have a foundation specialist come out and take a look at any kind of cracks, whether that be your stair step crack, your horizontal crack. You don't want that to continue to get big and continue to push in more and more, because it just gets more and more expensive to fix something as you let it go.
Yeah, you don't fix it right away, it becomes a bigger problem. So you want to get this stuff fixed right away. Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
And another question here, how can I just cut down a tree outside of the house recently? I was warned about those tree roots damaging the foundation. Right? So it's an interesting question, because it must have been from an arborist. If you have these large tree root systems that are underneath the foundation, and then you cut that tree down, what you end up having is organic material that's now dead, right? And that dead organic material is going to be able to compress, or it's going to break down and it starts to shrink. So you can actually get foundation settlement if you have a big enough tree system or big enough root system underneath the foundation that's now compressing, because now the footer, the bottom part of your foundation, is no longer able to stabilize or support the weight of the home.
So that root will start decomposing, and your foundation can start dropping well, into that void.
Yeah, and you can see that in new home builds where they've clear cut a neighborhood, right? They've come into a forested area, cut all those out, but they haven't taken the roots out. So now all you have is that organic material still underground that's breaking down, and over time that can weaken the foundation system. So it's an interesting situation there. Looks like on our two sections here, that's all we have for questions today. So want to thank everybody who tuned in today. Thank you again, Jerry, for joining us. Appreciate you coming in and giving me the plumbing scoop. And make sure you keep an eye out for our next segment. We'll go live in July. Until then, you can visit groundworks.com or a1plumbers.com if you have any questions or for more information on today's segment. Appreciate it.
Thank you.